He was just tight enough and familiar enough with the house to go out into the kitchen alone, allegedly to get ice, but actually to sober up. He was not a close friend of the family to pass out. The living room couch. He left the party and without hesitation, leaving the group by the piano, singing Stardust, and his hostess talking earnestly to a young man with thin, clean glasses and a sullen mouth. He walked guardedly through the dining room, where a small group of 4 or 5 people sat on stiff chairs, carefully reasoning something out among themselves. The kitchen doors swung abruptly to his touch, and he sat beside a white enamel table, clean and cold under his hand. He positioned his glass in the green pattern and noticed a young girl looking at him from across the table. "Hello," he stated. "You the daughter?" "I'm Eileen," she said. "Yes." She appeared saggy and ill-formed, with braided hair on either side of her face. Her pullover was purple and her hair was dark. "You sound nice and sober," he said, then realized it was inappropriate to say to young girls. "I was just having a cup of coffee," she explained. "May I get you one?" He almost laughed, believing she was dealing properly with a belligerent drunk. "Thank you," he replied. "I believe I will." To clear his mind, he focused his gaze on the hot coffee and allowed the steam enter his eyes. "I suppose you'd like it black," she said. "It sounds like a lovely party," she replied without longing, "and everyone must be having a good time." "It is a lovely party." He drank the boiling hot coffee, wanting her to know she had helped him. His head straightened and he grinned at her. "Thank you," he said. "I feel better." "It must be very warm in the other room," she observed calmly. He burst out laughing, and she grimaced, but excused herself by saying, "It was so hot upstairs, I thought I'd come down for a while and sit out here." "Were you asleep?" he inquired. "Did we wake you?" "I was doing my homework," she explained. He noticed her against a backdrop of meticulous writing, tattered textbooks, and laughter among classmates. "You're in high school?" "I'm a senior." She waited for him to speak before saying, "I was out a year when I had pneumonia." He couldn't think of anything to say and pretended to listen to distant noises from the front of the house instead. "It's a good party," he said faintly. "I suppose you like parties," she remarked. He sat dumbfounded, staring into his empty coffee cup. He admitted to light gatherings, but her tone was shocked, as if he were about to say he preferred an arena with gladiators fighting wild monsters or a single circular waltzing in a garden. "I'm almost twice your age, dear child," he thought, "yet it hasn't been long since I completed schoolwork." "Do you want to play basketball?" he said. "No," she replied. He felt irritated that she had been in the kitchen first, that she lived in the house, and that he had to keep talking to her. "What is your homework about?" he asked. "I'm writing a paper on the future of the world," she explained, smiling. "Does it sound silly?" "I think it is silly. Your party out front is discussing it. That's why I came out here." He swiftly said, "What are you saying about the future of the world?" as she questioned his motivation for coming here. "I don't really think it's got much future," she went on to say. "At least the way we've got it now." He said, "It's an interesting time to be alive," as if he were still present at the party. "Well, after all," she replied, "it isn't as though we didn't know about it in advance." He noticed her staring at the toe of her saddle shoe, shifting her foot softly and following it with her eyes. It's really a frightening time when a girl 16 has to think of things like that. In his day, he mocked the fact that girls were just interested in drinking and necking. "I'm 17. She looked up and smiled at him again. "There's a terrible difference," she explained. "In my day," he replied emphatically, "girls thought of nothing but cocktails and necking." "That's part of the problem," she replied sincerely. "If people had been really honestly scared when you were young, we wouldn't be so badly off today." His tone was harsher than intended. "When I was young," and he turned away from her with a half-hearted curiosity, as if he were being kind to a child. "I imagine we thought we were scared. I imagine that all 16 and 17-year-olds are afraid. It's just a phase, similar to being overly interested in boys. I keep figuring how it will be." She spoke softly and clearly to a place just past him on the wall. "I believe churches come first, even before the Empire State Building. The large apartment buildings along the river gradually sink into the water, engulfing the occupants. The schools may be in the middle of a Latin class, possibly during reading Caesar." She looked at him with a numb excitement. "Every time we start a chapter in Caesar, I wonder if we'll never finish it. Perhaps our Latin class will be the last to read Caesar." "That would be good news," he added lightly. "I used to hate Caesar." "I suppose when you were young, everyone hated Caesar," she observed coolly. He paused for a moment before saying, "I think it's a little silly for you to fill your mind with all this morbid trash. Buy a movie magazine and relax." "I'll be able to get all of the movie magazines I want," she insisted. "The subways will crash through and squash the small magazine stands. You may easily find candy bars, magazines, cosmetics, artificial flowers, and even outfits on the street from major retailers. And fur coats." "I hope the liquor stores will break wide open," he added, becoming impatient. "I'd walk in and help myself to a case of brandy and never worry about anything again. The office buildings will be just piles of broken stones," she remarked emphatically while looking at him. "If only you could know exactly what minute it will come." "I see," he replied. "I'll go with the rest. I see." "Things will be different afterward," she remarked. "The world as we know it will end. We will have new regulations and ways of living. Perhaps a legislation prohibiting living in dwellings would eliminate the ability to hide from others. Maybe there'll be a law to keep all 17-year-old girls in school learning sense," he added, rising to his feet. "There won't be any schools," she stated bluntly. "No one will learn anything. To avoid returning to our current situation." "Well," he remarked with a light laugh, "you make it seem so exciting. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it." He came to a halt, pressing his shoulder into the swinging dining room door. He wanted to say something grown-up and scathing, but he was frightened of telling her that he had listened to her and that when he was younger, people did not talk like that. "If you have any trouble with your Latin," he remarked with a laugh, "I'll be glad to give you a hand." She giggled, surprising him. "I still do my homework every night," she stated. In the living room, the group by the piano was singing "Home on the Range," and the hostess was deep in conversation with a tall man in a blue suit. He approached the girl's father and said, "I've just had a very interesting conversation with your daughter." His host's gaze traveled quickly around the room. "Eileen, where is she?" "In the kitchen. She's doing her Latin." The host simply stated, "Gallia est omnia divisa in partes tres." "I know. A really extraordinary girl." His host shook his head ruefully. "Kids nowadays," he said,